What's happening, Achievers? Ajit Sidhu here. It's another beautiful day as always. Today I want to talk, this week, what I want to do is talk about a couple of things about a never give up mentality. And I've been thinking about this all night. I decided yesterday when I was putting my son to sleep that I told him the story about that I told last night, and he was so motivated. And I told him that my little nephew has been listening to it as well. And I asked him, are you benefiting from these stories? And he said, Daddy, I do. It really motivates me. And I thought, if nothing else, if this just motivates the younger generation, my job is done. But this motivates everyone. By me actually thinking about these processes, motivating myself to keep going, to keep moving forward. And I'm hoping that it does the same for you. Now, last night, after putting my son to sleep, I went through a whole process of trying to think about, why do people give up? Why do we give up? That's a question. Have you ever given up? Or have you ever got to a point where you felt like giving up? The wall, the dreaded wall that everyone always feels. Runners feel that when they're running the marathon, they hit that wall. Everyone talks about this wall. In business, in life, in anything you do, there is that dreaded wall. That wall is a point where you make a decision. And that's the give up point or the keep moving forward point. Now, in your life, can you think of a time when you actually hit the wall and gave up or broke through? If you've given up, why did you give up? What process went through your mind to actually make you give up? Did you think it was too much hard work? Did you think it was not worth it? Couldn't you find the answers on how to move forward? What about the successes, the achievements, the achievers, because we're all achievers here. When you broke through, what made you break through? What made you decide to actually hit through that wall? And I was thinking about this entire process through my life. Right from when I was young, even small things like just playing football, and then doing martial arts. Every single time I did martial arts, I got to a point in my life when I was hitting a wall. And you just had to break through and keep moving forward. And I was thinking, what made me keep moving forward? What made me get my black belts? What made me move from one martial art to the next martial art? And doing this entire exercise was such an enlightening process for myself, because I was able to break it down to a small chart. And I'm going to post this drawing up in the comment section because I think it's so valuable. And this actually came to me this morning. I went to sleep about 1 o'clock last night and I was up at 4:50 again this morning, just completely juiced up by this thought. So I'm going to share this. And I'm hoping that's going to be valuable. You can always post your comments below if you do not understand the concepts, and I can always go through them individually. It is quite a tough concept. However, I'm going to simplify it because that's kind of one of my speciality. I'm not intelligent enough to actually make things complicated. I make things simple. People think that I make things simple, but it's just because I'm simple. I didn't pass my 9-year-old brain, and I'm stuck at 9-year-old, and my son and my children love it. So here I go. When you make a decision that's made, any decision that's made, if it's on the wall or if it's to do something new, it's made at a point of either a peak state or a poor state. Now, state is kind of like the energy you have, or the happiness, or the passion that you have, or the upset, the sad, so emotion that you have. So when I say state, that's kind of like the emotion that you're going through at that point. the state we control through our mind, as I mentioned previously. So the state is controlled by the questions that we're asking, our physiology, how we're feeling. But this is the main point where you either break through or you break away. The decision that you make is either in a peak state, which will make you break through, or if it's in a poor state, you break away and you give up. And that is the secret sauce. This is it. If we want to achieve, we got to keep our finger on the pulse constantly and know that we're making decisions at a peak state. If we're not making decisions at a peak state, then any decision we make is going to be a poor one. Excuse me. So when a decision's made, if you make a decision in a peak state, the next process that comes from it is a story. And a story is either from your past experiences that you've had that's given you proof that you can break through. Like myself, for instance, if I go back to when I was in the gym business, and then I was I did a jewelry business with my sister, and then I even did a Clean Easy business with my wife, and this was beforehand, and on top of that I did the property business. I've got experience of what comes about, how the process comes, how you feel like you want to just give up, how you feel like this is not worth it, you're just putting money in and not getting anything back initially, how you just think this is such a lonely job where you just completely have to focus 100%, and how you start thinking, is this worth it, taken away from everything else I'm doing. It's a process that happens over and over again. But once it's made at a peak state, a peak decision that you make, you're in a peak state, you have a story. And from that story, you have that story that creates the belief. So the third step here is the belief. So decision, what state you're in, the story that you're telling yourself to create the belief. From that belief, it gives you energy, it gives you passion, it gives you the drive to be able to do it. And then you take action. And when you take action and you get that small result, that feeds back into the result and the story. Because now you've got another story that you can feed off, another drip feed. And it gives you more belief. And then you have more passion and more potential. And then from there, you take action and you get a better result. And it's a cycle that keeps going around and around. And that cycle is the reason why the rich keep getting richer, the achievers keep achieving, the successful keep becoming successful, because they know this cycle that goes around and around and around and around continuously. But how did that cycle start? It was just through a peak decision, when you're in a peak state and a decision is made. Now imagine you made a decision. So you're sitting there and you reached a point in your life where you think, I can't do this anymore. I feel like really giving up. I don't want to do this anymore. I miss spending time with my friends and family. I'm spending so much money on this. It can be anything, but you make a decision in a poor state. Now, when a decision is made in a poor state, you create a story, or you pull out stories from your experience. This happened to me before. Why does this always happen to me? This always does. This happened to me previously. I lost all my money in that deal, in that business. I became bankrupt on that. Why am I even doing this? And then from there, you create a belief. You create a belief for yourself that's going to be non-rewarding. A belief that's non-empowering. And the potential that you had starts going down, and it starts going down. And the actions you take is less action, less action. And because you took less action, the result you get is very poor. And from that, you create another story. See? I knew that was going to happen. And that feeds off the belief, which gives you potential. Then it goes into the actions that you take. From there, it keeps feeding constantly around and around. And it all starts from the decision that you made. It's either in a peak state or a poor state. So why do we give up? All you have to do is think back on when you made the decision. Were you in a lousy state, a poor energy? Like you feel like giving up, ripping your papers and chucking it, don't want to do your homework, don't want to do stuff? Or did you think, let me take myself out of this situation, go for a run, get into the gym, hit the bag, do what I need to do to make myself into a powerful state, and once I'm in a peak state, then and only then will I make a decision. And then when you come back and you make that decision in a peak state and you break through it, you get a story. You create a story, or you can use other people's stories. There's many stories on this Facebook Live, on this Invincible Achievers, that you can just pull out of. And I'm going to keep telling stories that you're going to be able to pull out of and use for yourself. That person didn't give up. Oh, the Wright brothers didn't do that. Oh, J.K. Rowling, brilliant. Jim Carrey, great. Lamborghini, he did it. And there's going to be many more stories. And from that, you create a belief. Like that Roger Bannister, the 4-minute mile. No one had ever done it, but he created a story for himself that he could do it by visualization. And once he did it, he created a belief. And once he had that belief, he knew he had the potential. And once he had that potential, he took action, he achieved. And that's where it is. And I will put that drawing up. But today's story, this rant was not meant to go for this long. This conversation wasn't meant to go for too long. But today's story is about a gentleman. It's about a young man sitting on a train. A young man is sitting on a train looking blankly out the window, watching the trees go by. He's got a somber face. He's in deep thought. He's thinking to himself, after 27 years, within that 27 years, how did I lose 2 companies? I shut them down through bankruptcy. And now this one last final push that I thought I had, I lost it. I completely lost it. Now this young man's name was Elias. Elias was sitting there thinking about how he lost his final chance. His mind raced back to the time when he was young. A time when he used to just dream and enjoy life and be happy. A time when he would go with his dad to a fun fair and just enjoy the people around him. And he would go home and he would start drawing pictures. And he loved drawing. He really enjoyed it. But coming back to a few hours before Elias entered the train, he had left a company, a big company, that had stolen his successful drawing. He had drawn a picture of a rabbit. He drew a picture of a rabbit that had started to become a success, and people were loving this rabbit. And this big corporation, this company, took it. And when he tried to get it back, they told him, nope, it's ours now. The one mistake he made, he didn't protect his drawing. Now the drawing was Oswald, the rabbit. And he sat there, Elias sat there, looking out of the window, thinking about how he used to just dream, how he used to just draw, how he used to enjoy life. But then his mind kept going back to how he had given up, how he had destroyed 2 businesses, how this company had stolen his picture from him. He started to feel a pain around his stomach, or was it his heart? He started to feel sweat dripping down his head. He crunched over. He looked at the table in front of him. His breathing started to deepen. He started to look like he was about to have a heart attack, but then it changed. He realized it wasn't pain of the heart. This was pain of anger. He was angry. He clenched his hand into a fist and slammed it down on the table. Enough was enough. He decided not to think about what had happened. He started to think about how he could learn from this, what he can do to move things forward. All the great stuff. He started to focus on when he was young, and he used to just draw just for passion. And he grabbed his briefcase, pulled out his drawing pad and started to draw. He drew and he drew and he looked at what he drew and he loved what he drew. And he folded this piece of paper up, knowing that his brother is waiting for him at the station when the train stops. The doors opened, he saw his brother, he handed the drawing to his brother. And he said, take this to the designers, give them this picture, tell them to put it in the movie we had created, the story. Let them know the character's name is Mortimer. And off the brother rushed, he ran off. Now, the designers had implemented his drawing into the movie, had actually put the picture into the movie. And when Elias was looking at this, he looked proud, but there was something that was not right. It was the name. He thought, Mortimer does not ring bells. Mickey, the mouse, rings bells. In that year, the movie was released and it was a huge success. And Walt, Elias, Disney had taken a step to create a billion-dollar empire that exists now. Walt Disney Studios was created. He created the theme parks, all the movies, all the movies that we enjoy on a weekly basis, on a daily basis. The stories are running in our head. They've changed lives. They've changed children's lives. All because he made that decision. He had to make a decision at that point. Did he make it in a peak state or a poor state? He was in a poor state, but luckily for all of us, he smashed it down and decided to draw with passion. Now, the reporters, after the success of the movie, there was reporters everywhere in the room, and he was standing in front of a podium with a mic in front, and one of the reporters asked him, Walt, how did you do this? This is amazing. This movie is absolutely fantastic. What advice can you give to all the new people? How did you do it? And he said, you only have to do one thing, and one thing only. And this is a secret to what made everything possible. He said, all dreams can come true if we are brave enough to go for them. So be brave, achievers. Keep moving forward. Make decisions in a peak state. Never make a decision in a poor state. Find out stories from your life experience of what you've achieved. Even small things like swimming or just riding a bike. Use that information. Use that to give you energy, to give you the fuel to your sports car, to be able to create that belief, the belief that you can actually do it. And once you've got the belief, you feel like you can do it, then take action. Execute now. And once you've executed and you get to success, then continue the cycle and use that story. If you didn't get that success, just know that you just figured out a way not to do it. And that's a success in itself. And then keep feeding that cycle over and over again. I'll see you later. Bye.